Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Have Your Say video, and this video is for All Stars 9 episode 4. So today we're going to be recapping this week's episode, going through the result of the Have Your Say poll, and I'll be talking about some recent drama involving Roxxxy and Vanjie calling out Aura Mayari, as well as Eureka's response to Kim Chi's comments about her hygiene. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Okay, so let's start by recapping the episode. So the queens get back into the workroom, and the discussion seems to centre around whether there are cliques forming, and this is because they're talking about who the top two queens are going to give their badges to next week. And then the next day when the queens come back in and they're in the workroom, this was quite an interesting time because this was actually the first real drama I think we've seen. So Gottmik says that she thinks that Angeria and Chanel are in some kind of alliance, I believe, with Nina, because Gottmik thinks that they were cheering for Nina rather than her during the lip sync last week. And this was a little bit random, I thought. I didn't quite understand. I thought this was such a random grouping to accuse someone of being in a clique. From the footage they showed, it seemed like maybe they were just enjoying Nina's performance because it was kind of different, even if the reveals maybe weren't the best. And I also just loved Chanel's face during this moment because she looked completely gagged and confused. And this was quite an interesting topic because Nina genuinely seemed really confused but also conflicted because, in my opinion, she was definitely going to give her benefactress badge to Chanel, but you can see that Nina is really doubting it because it's then going to feed into this narrative that they're saying that they might be in some kind of alliance. I was a little bit confused, but maybe there's stuff that we didn't see on camera about this whole alliance. So I was a little bit confused by this, but I was definitely enjoying that there was a little bit of drama going on. And there was also that moment when Gottmik said that certain, quote, little birdies were telling her that people are in alliances. So I also wonder, is this another queen saying that, or could this potentially be someone from production saying that? Let me know in the comments what you think. So RuPaul comes in, and that's when Nina and Gottmik have to decide who to give their second badge to. And Nina, interestingly, gives her badge to Roxxxy. And she did kind of say it in the episode, but I definitely think this was swayed by the drama that had happened, because Nina didn't want people to think that she was in an alliance with Chanel, but I think she definitely was going to give it to Chanel. But the thing that I thought was really interesting was that after all of this, Gottmik had been saying about these cliques and things, but we all know that she is quite close to Vanjie, but she still then gave her badge to Vanjie. And I thought maybe Gottmik wasn't going to do that because Chanel also didn't get a badge from Nina. So I was kind of surprised that it seemed that only Nina was really persuaded by this whole topic. But obviously at the end of the day, this is just a TV show, so this is just a little bit of fun and it's really not that serious. So we find out that the challenge for this week is that the queens have to give drag makeovers to real-life firemen. But there's a bit of a twist that the queens this time will be doing it in pairs because there are 8 queens and only 4 firemen, and they also have to not only make over the firemen, but they also have to do a kind of girl group performance. And they're definitely trying to make it a lot more interesting and dramatic this season and do a lot more entertaining things. When, for example, they did this speed dating where the firemen themselves get to choose which team they want to be in. I thought that was really cool. And what I really enjoyed was that even though all of the firemen seem very sort of burly, masculine men and only one of them is gay, they all seemed really up for it and they all seemed genuinely nice and appreciative to be there. Whereas we have seen on maybe some other seasons, for example, season 6 with Jocelyn Fox's makeover partner, he clearly didn't want to be there. And any long-time viewers of my channel will know I have talked about this, but Jocelyn once spilled that that guy, her makeover partner, he was actually forced to be there by his fiancée because he had cheated on his fiancée, and as punishment, she made him do this makeover. But anyway, on this challenge on All Stars 9, I really appreciated that all the men seemed genuinely supportive and there was a real reason why they wanted to be there. So getting on to the pairings, Adam chose Roxxxy and Miss Vanjie, Honore chose Plastique and Georges, Bradley chose Angeria and Chanel, and that meant that Nathan was with Nina and Gottmik. The queens then got to work on actually deciding their lyrics for the verses, and it did seem like the firemen were quite involved in this, which Roxxxy did corroborate in the Roscoe's recap for this week. And I really appreciated that because it did feel like they weren't just a makeover partner, they were genuinely part of the episode and were really contributing to the final product. So now let's move on to the actual runways and performance. So the first group was the Hoses, which is Miss Vanjie, Roxxxy Andrews, and Valerie Valentine. I thought this group, definitely in terms of the fashion, were the most cohesive. As Michelle said, this was definitely a Roxxxy Andrews production. They all look immaculate. The makeover partner looked so good. The wig was great. I thought the hair looked amazing. Everything was just so cohesive. And even though their makeover partner was probably the oldest and they did seem a bit perhaps stiffer in some of their movements, I really appreciated that he just really went all the way and really living the fantasy. So the next up was Meow Meow Mix, which was Plastique Tiara, Gorgeous, and Angelique. Angelique looked absolutely stunning and she had the attitude down. Out of everyone, this was my favourite, I will say from the start. I thought, although the outfits, they do definitely look Powerpuff Girls and there is a consistency to them, I can potentially see why the other group maybe looked slightly more girl groupish. But Angelique just did so well. Out of all of the makeover partners, she was head and shoulders above everyone else. Her attitude was just so good. She looked incredible. The way she held herself looked like she had been doing drag for years. And as one of the judges said, I genuinely had to remind myself that Angelique was the makeover partner. I honestly thought that this could just be another queen in the group. It was just so amazing. I was actually kind of blown away by how good this was. Next we had the Pussycat Hose, and that was Angeria, Chanel, and Natasha Bradley. I thought this makeover was fun. I do see that there wasn't a huge amount of cohesion between them apart from the shoes. I thought the actual makeover was good. I think the bit that maybe stuck out to me was that the outfits were not really matching in any way. Angeria and Chanel kind of matched with that coral colour, but I don't think the makeover partner looked like they were in the same girl group. It looked like maybe one random person with two people that were related. But overall, I don't think there was a huge amount of cohesion, but the actual makeover itself did look really good. And then finally we had the Hose Draggers, which was Nina West, Gottmik, and Anita Blaze. I really loved that with Anita, obviously the fireman is a very buff guy with big muscles, and as Gottmik said, they had to kind of have to embrace the man, and they actually made that part of it, and I think that's definitely the way to go. It's very difficult to hide those massive arms, so you may as well make a thing out of it. I thought this makeover was okay. It wasn't my favourite. I don't think it was the best, but it also wasn't the worst. The outfits did have some cohesion in terms of not necessarily the colours, but that kind of feather fringe that they all had, and they all looked kind of 60s inspired. So I quite liked that, and I thought the storyline was fun, and the fact that they were really making Anita front and centre in it. But overall, I don't think the cohesion was enough that I felt like it was a girl group. It kind of just looked like three people with similar sort of outfits. But it was still a very good makeover, and I thought Anita's makeup was stunning, and I really think that that was probably the best part of this group. And then onto the performances. I thought all the performances were pretty similar. I don't think anyone did really well or really badly compared to everyone else. Definitely Angelique stood out for me as being the one that was really standing out the most out of all of the makeover partners. She really looked like she belonged there on the stage. Also, I just want to give an honourable shout out to that random guy who was doing the pole dancing that they just kept cutting to every now and then. I guess they were just doing it for some eye candy, but it had nothing to do with the performances. But every time it came up, I remember me and my boyfriend were just watching this and we just kept laughing every time because it was just so random that they had this pole dancer for absolutely no reason. But good for him, he's clearly very good at his job. Okay, so we find out that the winning group were Roxxxy and Vanjie. Roxxxy and Vanjie then lip-synced to the song Black Cat by Janet Jackson. So we find out that both Vanjie and Roxxxy have won because it is a tie, which is the first time this has happened. And that does mean that both of them have to make the decision about who they want to cut with the ruby snippers. And we find out that they've decided to cut Angeria. Okay, so now let's move on to the Have Your Say poll results. So question 1 was, do you like the makeover episodes usually? And we had 29.7% for no and 70.3% for yes. So the majority do like makeover episodes. I quite like makeover episodes. I think it is very much part of drag, and it shows so many skills involved in drag, such as makeup and costumes. And as someone myself who has been put in drag, if anyone has seen my 100k celebration video, I was put in drag by the winner of Drag Race Down Under Season 3, Isis Avis Loren. That process took about 5 hours in total, and we didn't even necessarily do full drag in terms of corseting and heels and things like that. So I can somewhat appreciate it takes a very, very long time for the makeup and all the other things. So I do quite like the makeover episodes, but as some people have said, I do think that the judging is often very inconsistent, and that's the part I dislike the most. Question 2 was, do you prefer the traditional style makeover, which is one queen with one partner, or this new format, which is 2 queens and then they do some kind of performance with a girl group? And this was really interesting because it was pretty much a 50-50 split. It was 50.1% for new format and 49.9% for traditional. I think for an All-Stars, this new format does work, and I can see why they've done it because they're not having eliminations this season. So at this point in a normal season, they would have a lot less queens. So I can see why they did it, because you can't really have 8 makeover partners for 8 queens. That would just be a lot. So I can see why they combined it and had 2 queens per makeover partner. And I thought this was a nice switch up. I quite like it when Drag Race does stuff like this to stop it from going stale. But for a regular season, I do think that one person, one queen is a more accurate and fair way to do it, because then you know that only the queen and her talents are responsible for the makeover. Whereas in this one, it was quite difficult to tell who did the makeup, who did the outfits, was it 50-50, was it not? So I appreciated the format, but I think it should just be for All Stars. Question 3 was, which group did the best makeover in terms of the looks? And with the vast majority, we had Plastique and Gorgeous with 78%, with Roxxxy and Vanjie in second place with 13.1%. And I think this is something that's been a huge talking point from this episode. I do agree that although I think that Roxxxy and Vanjie did a really, really good job, I do not want to discredit them in any way, because the outfits were stunning and the hair and makeup were probably the best of everyone. In my opinion, Angelique from Plastique and Gorgeous's group just did so well and was so amazing. To me, that was the reason why that group should have won. I was quite surprised that they didn't win, given that they also had that moment when Angelique said, "Not a soul can clock," which is obviously from Monica Beverly Hills. That was so funny, and I really thought that was going to solidify them being the winners that week. Not just because of the joke, but because it was just a really fun episode. They did so well. I was very surprised they didn't win, and I think judging by this, most people were surprised that they didn't win, because they did get almost 80% of the vote. Question 4 was, which group did the best makeover in terms of the girl group performance? And again, the majority went to Plastique and Gorgeous with 68.7%, although it was a slightly less percentage than before. And actually for the performance in second place, it was Gottmik and Nina with 17.1%. And again, I do agree. I think Plastique and Gorgeous did really well, both in terms of the looks, but also their performance was definitely one of the best. I can see why Gottmik and Nina were second in this particular vote, even though they got the least amount in the previous vote, because in terms of the performance, I think their makeover partner, Anita, did the best with the dancing in a lot of ways, because they did say that out of drag, he is a go-go dancer in his spare time. And I think they really did lean on that, and that was obviously a very smart choice. Question 5 was, which group deserved to win overall? And again, unsurprisingly, we had Plastique and Gorgeous with 78.8%, with Roxxxy and Vanjie in second place with 12.5%. Question 6 was, who won the lip sync in your opinion? And we had 55.5% for Vanjie and 44.5% for Roxxxy. So it was actually a pretty close vote. In my opinion, it wasn't necessarily the best lip sync that we've seen this season, but both queens still did very well. They were doing quite different styles. Roxxxy was doing more slow but attitude and really vibing with the song, whereas Vanjie was also vibing with the song, but in a lot more of an energetic way. And in my opinion, Vanjie probably was taking the limelight a bit more because she was doing so many tricks and splits, so my eyes were going to her more than Roxxxy, but they both did a good job, so I think the tie was probably justified. Question 7 was, who would you cut/snip? And with the overwhelming percentage of 64.7% was Gottmik, with Plastique Tiara in second place with 11.7% and then Nina West with 10.2%. I was really surprised that they did cut Angeria because she has already been cut before and I don't think her group was the best this week, so I don't think she was a threat this week. Maybe in general she's a threat. In my opinion, I also would have cut Gottmik because she's been doing so well and I think she is the front runner so far, so I was very, very surprised. It did seem that Roxxxy was doing it as an eye for an eye because Angeria had cut her in the first episode and maybe Vanjie was just going along for the ride. But we did see in the preview for next week's episode that Angeria isn't very happy about this, so it could also be that maybe this was just a way to stir up some drama. And then finally, question 8 was, who is the front runner so far, or in other words, most likely to win the competition? And perhaps unsurprisingly, we had Gottmik with 71.1%, followed by Roxxxy Andrews with 13.1%, and then Plastique Tiara with 7.9%. And I do agree, although I don't think Gottmik's group did the best this week, I think Gottmik is still the front runner because of the amount of wins that she's had so far. So I also would have cut Gottmik and I also would have her down as the front runner for the season. And I agree that after Gottmik, I would also have Roxxxy and Plastique. I'm not sure in what order I would put them, but I would definitely have those two. So it'll be interesting to see whether Gottmik does get cut because she hasn't been cut so far. And I do think she is a huge threat in terms of the competition. So it'll be interesting to see whether the queens also play this out or whether alliances and cliques will come into it. Okay, so let's move on to the comments for this week. And one of the comments came from my Patreon member Ashley, who said, I like the makeovers. And as I said, this was something that was discussed quite a lot because a lot of people don't like makeovers because they find them boring or they say that the judging is rigged. And for example, one of the comments on my Have Your Say poll said, I like makeovers because the queens get to display their talents, but I hate the inconsistent judging. And I do agree, that is the one bit that I don't like. I think they need to have one solid criteria. Either they need to say we want the queens to look the same and it's about family resemblance, or it needs to be about who looks the best out of the makeover partners regardless of the consistency of the outfits. So that is the part that I dislike the most, but the actual makeover episodes can be fun as long as they have makeover partners who clearly want to be there. My next comment came from my Patreon member Gardy, who said, I love Georges and Plastique's team. Their makeover was phenomenal. The choreography was solid and the outfits were fantastic. And as you can imagine, this was definitely a topic that came up a lot in the comments with people saying that Georges and Plastique should have won, which is obviously evident from the fact that they also got the highest majority in the votes. And for example, some of the other comments said that Plastique and Georges were robbed this episode and Michelle's critiques for them were completely out of nowhere. And other people have also said that they think that it's rigged, even though they don't normally say that. And again, it did feel very odd. I did think that Plastique and Georges were going to win. I'm not sure if I'd say rigged is the correct word, because I do think from a perspective of the actual looks and the aesthetics, Roxxxy and Vanjie did an incredible job and they all looked amazing and their outfits were the best of any group. But the way I would judge it is overall the looks, but also the performance and the makeover partner themselves. And to me, Angelique just did such a great job, I would have given the win to Plastique and Georges. But this whole idea of it being potentially rigged towards a certain queen or just rigged in general was quite a consistent theme in the comments. For example, one person said they thought the reason they gave the win to Roxxxy and Vanjie is because they went from having 0 to 2 badges in one episode, and maybe the producers thought that it would stir up some drama. And then quite a few people actually said specifically they thought that there was a lot of favoritism or rigging in favour of Roxxxy. And someone even said that they felt this was a little bit like All Stars 5 for Shea. And just in case you don't know, there is a kind of conspiracy theory. I mean, there's lots of conspiracy theories for Drag Race, but there was one for All Stars 5 where people said that it felt very rigged in order for Shea to win because they felt like Shea should have won season 9 and maybe they wanted to rig it in favour so that Shea would finally get her win. And this was also the case for All Stars 1 when a lot of people said that it was rigged in favour of Chad Michaels because they said that Chad Michaels should have won season 4 instead of Sharon. So people were saying that the producers rigged it so that Chad could win. There was also that famous joke where they were reading out mean comments and Chad said something like, Chad is about to die, so RuPaul wanted her to be happy. And I'm not sure if I 100% agree with all of these conspiracy theories. I do think the producers probably have an idea of which queens they think are going to go far based on the queens' performance in their original season. And someone like Shay and Chad both did extremely well on their original seasons. So I think it's not exactly unexpected that they'll also do well on an All Stars. In terms of this season for Roxxxy, I don't think it's necessarily rigged for her to win. I just think that Roxxxy is an extremely popular contestant because she's good at everything. She's been on All Stars before. She's very popular in the fan base. She's also just extremely talented. So I can see why maybe the producers would want her to do well, but I don't think they're rigging it for her. I just think that the judges in this episode were just really blinded by the fact that their outfits were so good in their group that I think they gave it to them based on the fashion rather than maybe necessarily the makeover. And then there were also a few comments saying that they're hoping that Angelique will be on season 17. Okay, so we're now going to move on to a little bit of mild online drama that is related to this week's episode. So after the episode came out, season 15 contestant Aura Mayari responded to a Twitter thread where someone said that Georges and Plastique devoured this week's makeover challenge. And Aura said, "No tea, no shade, this group was the winner, performance check, outfit check, makeup check, did the other group have to win so everyone has badges?" This tweet then got a huge amount of engagement with over 1 million views. Some people in the comments agreed with Aura and said that the producers did do it for storyline because they wanted Roxxxy and Vanjie to win their own badges after both of them got gifted one at the beginning of the episode. However, other people then started criticising Aura, saying that she was discrediting Roxxxy and Vanjie by implying that they only got their badges for storyline. And they also said that Aura shouldn't have won the girl group challenge on her season, so this is hypocritical of her to criticise. Aura then tagged Roxxxy in the tweet and said, "Here you go, sis." And this then seemingly prompted Roxxxy to reply to Aura's tweet and said, "No, we won because we were great, just as everyone else." However, Aura continued to get a lot of criticism from people, saying that Aura was an early out on her season, so it was ironic for her to be commenting on other queens' performances. Aura then did 2 follow-up tweets responding to the backlash that she was getting. The first tweet said, "Why y'all think I'm coming for the Queen's drag? This is a makeover challenge. I'm looking at the men they made over. They all did great, but I thought the guy that Georges and Plastique did looked the best and performed the best. Take a deep breath and don't exhale." And the other tweet said, "This drag race community is just mean and cruel. The way you all go overboard and just straight up nasty." Vanjie then replied to Roxxxy's reply to Aura in reference to Aura, and Vanjie said, "Who is that? She was on the show too?" Vanjie also said, "If you know so much, why you ain't do good on your season? That's my question." Roxxxy responded to Vanjie and said, "I'm telling you, they know it all, but the proof is in their seasons. Let me start a real show." And some people started saying that it was shady that Aura tagged Roxxxy in the original post and that she started this drama. Aura's season 15 co-star Mistress Isabel Brooks then got involved and she replied to Vanjie's tweet saying, "Time to go live." The next day, I was informed by one of my followers on Instagram named Avand that Mistress, Roxxxy and Vanjie all took part in a Twitter Space live conversation to discuss this topic, and Avand sent me some screen recordings of what happened. I won't play the entire conversation, but here are just a few highlights of what they were talking about the situation to do with Aura and why Vanjie and Roxxxy responded the way they did.
And then you can't be sitting there talking about, oh, the Drag Race fans are this, that, and the third. Well, Mary, when you post something like that, if you don't got nothing nice to say, don't post it. But if you're going to post something like that, somebody's feelings is going to get hurt. And then, of course, you're going to get some kind of traction, or, something's going to come out of it. If you post something like that, of course, somebody's going to say something.
So she felt like Plastique and Georgia should have won. So then Roxxxy was like, "No, we won because we're just as great."
No, no. She said they should have won. Did they give them badges because that way everybody had a badge? That was the second part, and then she put the rolling out emoji.
Oh, I'm not even being funny. I didn't even clock that. Okay.
Mind you, I hope y'all know we being a little comedic. It's not that serious for real.
Aura put her opinion, which was fine. Everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Yes.
But then she wrote a thing on there and she put
they gave them the badges
to give them badges. That's why I said no, we won because we were great. It wasn't. I was answering her question. Now
You were
the
saying what
kids
you
have
said.
gone. The kids have gone in on this girl, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
not what I was trying to do. I was just basically explaining to her, no, baby, we also had a straight man.
And so in general, it seems that this tweet by Aura may have been slightly blown out of proportion, but Roxxxy and Vanjie were just clarifying why they reacted the way they did. And this is a good reminder that just because some queens are having a conversation back and forwards between themselves, it doesn't mean that you have to get involved and send any hate to the queens. So please just enjoy this drama passively, and remember that it's never okay to be hateful. Okay, and finally, I just wanted to give a quick update to the Eureka and Kim Chi situation. Those of you who've seen my last couple of videos will know that Eureka had told a story on the Very Delta podcast about Kim Chi refusing to loan her an outfit, and Kim then apparently got body shamed as a result of this story. And then Kim Chi said on her podcast that Eureka has poor hygiene and pooped the bed, and that's why she didn't want to loan Eureka any clothes. Make sure you check out my previous videos if you want the full tea on that, and I'll put links in the description. But there has since been an update on this situation after Kim Chi said those things about Eureka's hygiene. After Kim Chi's podcast came out, people then started making fun of Eureka online and joking about her pooping the bed and being smelly. At first it seemed that Eureka was making some jokes about the situation, and she tweeted saying, "I'm gonna go take a shower, be right back." And she also said, "I'm done, that wasn't so bad." And Eureka retweeted a gif of an elephant being washed that another person posted, most likely because Eureka calls herself the Elephant Queen. Eureka also seemingly referenced Roxxxy Andrews' All Stars 9 entrance line and said, "You can't clean the doll." And although some people in the comments saw the funny side of it, a lot of people criticised Eureka and made fun of her personal hygiene. Eureka subsequently tweeted the next day and said, "Imagine being on tour 6 years ago, sick, dealing with a mother having cancer, so very depressed, and all the time you're being laughed at behind your back for smelling and being alienated for it, but not being told till 6 years later. Girl, that's a lot." But Eureka also retweeted a few jokes people were making about her pooping the bed as well. Eureka then posted a lengthy response to the situation. I won't read the whole tweet out, but in short, Eureka said that she texted Kim to apologise for what happened. Eureka also said she didn't lie about the clothes situation, but she was in a bad place at the time, and she's now trying to take better care of herself and have better hygiene. And she finished by saying that she takes full responsibility for what she said on Delta's podcast, and she never thought the fans would attack Kim Chi about it. And although Kim Chi doesn't seem to have posted about it from her side, it looks like the two of them have somewhat resolved this drama privately, and so it looks like this is most likely the end of this particular situation. So there you go, there was the Have Your Say video for All Stars 9 episode 4. What did you think of this new format of the makeover challenge? And do you think it's easier or harder than the traditional makeover challenge? Let me know in the comments. And if you'd like to get early access to my videos as well as have your comments featured in my Have Your Say videos, please check out my Patreon and consider supporting me. It goes such a long way to helping support my channel and I really appreciate it. And I'll put a link to my Patreon in the description. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to all of my Patreon members who are amazing and support me every month. Thank you so much for being part of my Patreon. I really appreciate it and I really do love my Patreon community. You are all legends. If you liked this video, please remember to like and comment on the video to help tell the algorithm that this is a great video, and make sure you hit the subscribe button because it really does make such a big difference to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me again in future videos. Thank you, bye!